Right, year 7, so the texture we are going to create this time is going to be this elephant skin, okay? Now the shape and the line sort of comes together and makes one sort of thing. So our lines separate this elephant skin into these sort of Y shapes, or if you want to think about them as tree branches, you could think about them that way as well, okay? And then if we look at the tone, we can see that where we have these lines that separate our sections into these Y shapes, it is darker down at the edge and then comes up lighter towards the top. So we've got some of that curvy shading, that smiley face shading that we know about from our forms, okay? But there's something that we are going to have to think about in terms of our line, and that's something called line weight. Line weight is where we have some lines that are very thin and faint, and then we have some lines that are very thick and dark. So we're going to have a look at that within our elephant texture as well, okay? So I'm going to remove my picture, same as before, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer on the box that we're going to be working in, okay? So what I want you to do is we are going to be splitting our box up into some of these Y-like branch shapes. So I'm starting nice and thin, and I am creating a big Y shape with a smaller one inside, and then I'm going to have some further ones that sort of separate off, okay? So as long as you are making sort of tree branch like shapes that separate off into different crinkly sections, then that is fine by me, okay? So I've got some of those crinkly sections and I think I am quite happy with them now. So then what I'm going to do before I move on to apply the shading is I'm going to add that line weight to them. And what I want to happen is I want where they've got the ends of these Y shapes, I want those to be quite thin, but where my lines join together, I'm going to go back over and I'm going to push with my pencil so that I start to create some thicker lines. And again, where they start to taper off, I'm just going to let them go thinner. So you can see here I've got a really thin end, a really thick middle, and then I'm going back to thinner again. So I'm going to do the same thing with this one. I'm just going to make a line on the end of it, and I'm going to thicken it up where it joins onto that section there. This one, I think I'm just going to make it a tiny bit thicker around this bottom edge, okay? So you can go through and you can pick where you want to add a thinner line, where you maybe want to make it a little bit thicker, completely up to you, as long as you are varying the line weight that make these creases, these crinkles and these folds, okay? So once you've gone through and you've added your different line weights, what we are then going to do is we are going to create some of this smiley face shading that we practiced when we were shading our cylinders and our cones, okay? So I'm going to come across and I'm going to create a medium tone with that curvy smiley face shading. And I'm going to go all the way up to meet up with the top of that Y there, and then I'm going to make sure that I continue on all the way along this bottom section here with my medium tone, okay? Once I've gone in and I've done that, I can then work in with my finger, and I'm going to go in the same sort of direction. I'm going to smudge, but in a curvy sort of format as well. And I'm going to just try and smooth it out just a little. And again, if you think it goes a little bit too far, you can always go back in. You can darken any sections up by drawing back on top and making this curvier line. Now, I do quite like that we can still see a few of these lines, because if we look back into our elephant texture, we can see those little lines that come across, and some of them again have got these different line weights on. Some of them are quite thick, whereas others are quite thin. Okay, so what I'm going to go back in and do on top of my texture is I'm going to go and make some of those lines a little bit darker, a little bit thicker, and stand out a little bit more. Okay, and once you've done that on one section, then that's what we're going to continue to do for each section. So wherever you've done a line, you're going to go in with your smiley face shading in your medium tone, curving it, arcing it all the way along the line that you've created. Then you're going to get your finger, you're going to smudge in a similar direction, creating little arches and little curves. And then you're going to go back on top and darken up some of those lines and make some of them a little bit wider, so that you get the appearance of that crinkly texture of the elephant skin. Okay, now that you've seen all of the skills that you need to do this, off you go, over to you.